Okay, welcome everyone again. My name is Amanda. I am the Center Director at Brain Balance of San Diego and Chula Vista. I'm also joined by Miss Karina Ponce. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Of course, yes. My name is Karina Ponce. I'm a special ed teacher. So I've been in the educational field for more than 30 years. And I'm working as a special education RSP, resource specialist.
Down in South Bay. And we worked on the showcase together, but in this presentation, live presentation, we wanted to bring it up a bigger picture and answer any specific questions. So today we'll discuss that multisensory approach, why it's so critical to rebuild learning, and really the learning foundations and developmental foundations. So some of my questions for you, actually, Joanne, and any others that are part of it, please feel free to tap into the chat box, or if you don't mind being recorded, to unmute. What are some of the top challenges that you're seeing, hearing, or experiencing with your students, particularly since you mentioned earlier in our pre-chat with the Title I students, and any other challenges, I guess, that you and all your experience have been experiencing and seeing and needing help in?
As I said, I've been going into a Title I classroom pre-COVID now, and then some special ed classrooms. And so I see a real need for that more multisensory approach with all children, but especially with those children who are struggling. And
Absolutely.
So those programs that seem to work best are a little looser, and I don't mean looser in that it's just anything, but it's not as rote. It's more developmentally appropriate to their level, and to their interests and to their motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think the school system or any other programs out there too, how much do you think we can meet these children where they're at? And you mentioned developmentally appropriate, right, versus grade appropriate or age
Right.
appropriate. Do you see that there's a big disconnect there?
There has been, yes. I taught when it was years ago in kindergarten, K1, and there was more of a thrust for developmentally appropriate, not as much, I don't know, rote and so much testing.
Exactly. Like, okay, let's just meet these marks, right?
Right.
Everyone develops so differently, and yet we put everybody in one box and just kind of move everybody along, right? And those who need it the most aren't necessarily getting those services. And you mentioned the multisensory piece. The whole reason why we're talking about this is because there isn't that engagement in general anymore in education. So we'll get into that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I'm Amanda. My background is also in education. My master's in education. I've been in it for over 15 years now. I got my credential, but found myself better serving students and families outside the classroom, and hence where I am today. I really love it because what Brain Balance does, let me skip that. What Brain Balance does, which I'll talk about, really incorporates these various challenges that you're describing and Ms. Ponce is experiencing. And so, diagnoses or not, people are struggling in various ways, right? Everyone develops and learns different, and that's beautiful. That's what's great about neurodiversity. However, when we can't meet them where they're at, when we can't understand or have compassion for these differences, that's where the struggles have a disservice, right, to society and to our culture. And so again, whether it's they have come into us with a diagnosis or not, generally speaking, the issues we see are lack of focus, learning challenges, maybe it's dyslexia or comprehension challenges. We definitely see a lot of behavior or self-regulation challenges or processing challenges, and even relationship challenges, whether with themselves and those emotional outbursts or with not connecting with peers, etc. And we are a non-medical program, but we are a research-based backed program, I should say, created by looking at over 60 research programs across the globe, and current research and ongoing research as well at the moment, from Harvard Medical School and looking at how effective we are as a non-medical approach for kids with ADHD, to the improvements in cognition cognition with Cambridge Brain Sciences, to the current research with UCSF, one of the leading global researchers in I guess neurology and cognition too. And then even in the mental health journal back in, I think about 2020, just showing how nearly all participants in our program had, generally speaking, about 40 to 50% improvement in mental health. And that's huge, right? And by the way, we do work with kids, teens, and adults. So what we know is what we do works. And as we collaborate more with the different school district teachers and professionals like yourself, parents, together we are so much stronger. And our video, our showcase is just one example. So one thing we really emphasize is, generally speaking, people come to us with these challenges that we consider the tip of the iceberg, right? Whether it's trouble focusing or reading or behavior, regulation, etc., what we described earlier. But what we want you to understand is that there's so much more happening underneath the surface that's causing these symptoms. From primitive reflexes, these are infant reflexes that should no longer be present past about age 2 for many of them, but something like the palmar reflex, where babies, when they're first born, you put your hand in their hand. If they're grabbing and grasping still and have that inability to control, even if it's a mild reflex, it literally means they don't have full control of their body. So Ms. Ponce does activities to help, and so do we at Brain Balance, to work out these reflexes and help them strengthen those fine motor skills and literally gain more control and build up those specific brain connections in their brain to manage themselves. But we also look at all the sensory processing and gross and fine motor skills and how it all comes together, including core. Core strength and balance are some of the most underrated skills in each individual. I see Ms. Ponce thumbs up, and it's highly responsible for how we process information down our spine, right? Yeah, so there's a lot more to it. Ms. Ponce, do you want to elaborate on that while I think I need to let someone in?
No, actually, I mean, you're presenting all the neurocognitive theory very, very well, in a very easy way to process and understand. And it is funny that how we met, how we were start working, collaborating together. And Joanne, the way that you were saying, explaining that it is hard sometimes when we go and start working with the students, especially when you are like a substitute or you don't really know the group of students. It is hard to start working with them because we don't know what levels they are, what are the needs of the students. And now, even in special ed, we as a specialist, we have all the research, the studies, the assessments. However, knowing and finding a way how to work and approach those students, those learning disabilities, or students with developmental delays, with students with autism, students with attention deficit, it is really important. And it's an area that we have missed in education, everything that you're doing in Brain Balance. So the integration of these activities and helping the students to cope and be able to work on those areas of needs are preparing them. Preparing them for the acquisitional learning later to read and write.
Exactly. Yeah, so you really have to look at the full picture and build up that foundation for learning. What is their baseline? We can't just keep giving them tools if they don't have the toolbox. That's what I always say. And we forget about all these different elements that are critical for learning. It's not just the rote training, like you're saying, Joanne and others. We really need to look at the whole person, meet them where they're at, and understand their baseline and support their development in all these different areas. We also don't want to generalize, like, okay, maybe we have a second grader that's 7 years old, but developmentally they might be more of a 5-year-old in many ways, but we don't just generalize and say, okay, everything we start at a 5-year-old level, right? It depends. Everybody has their strengths and challenges in different areas of their development and growth and learning. And so we really have to find ways to change that education system, to assess children in a much more holistic manner, and then find ways to meet their needs, okay? So learning in the brain. So what is learning? Let me throw it out to you. Joanne, you can either answer or type. Others, if anybody else is joining, what is learning?
It's acquiring new skills and new abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So Oxford English Dictionary says it's the acquisition of knowledge or skills, like you said, and it's through experience, it's through study, it's by being taught. But it's also a physical process in the brain and where you build new brain connections. And to do that, it needs to happen repeatedly, and it has to happen in different settings. It needs to be dynamic and flexible and not just in this one trained way, right? So learning is really important, and yet there's so many challenges that we see, right? Some of the more common learning challenges include attention and focus, dyslexia, which is trouble with reading, dyscalculia, which is trouble with math, dysgraphia is trouble with writing and those coordination skills. Dyspraxia is that kind of whole body coordination from fine and gross motor skills, which can also affect things like writing. Anxiety is something, unfortunately, we see quite a bit of even before the pandemic. Reading and comprehension, and also executive functioning. So we'll talk a little bit more about executive functioning later, but essentially it's everything we do, right? Executive functioning is everything we do. So signs of learning challenges, something you probably experience in the classroom. Maybe you're a parent at home and you see this. We definitely see this in the center as well, and hear families and individuals struggle with either not being able to complete work when you're supposed to. Homework time is a really big nightmare when the child is otherwise quite pleasant. Maybe they forget instructions or they can't follow multi-step instructions. The kiddos exhibit quite a bit of task avoidance, right? Oh, I got to do this first, or let me just tap the pencil quite a bit. But you also have kids exhibiting that anxiety and maybe low self-esteem, whether outright and verbally saying that I feel dumb or I can't do this, that poor, not a growth mindset, basically, to exhibiting headaches or stomach aches when it comes time for stress, or comes time for tests or school days. Okay, so what does research tell us? What does research tell us? Brain connectivity is involved with things like ADHD, cognition, learning, behaviors, and even mental health. Studies show year after year that it is not just the regions of the brain that we need to be concerned with and training one area of the brain or one skill or one task. We really need to support overall brain connectivity. If you think of the brain like a highway, we want everything to be smooth flowing. We want all those carpool lanes to be clear. We don't want the traffic jams. We don't want to take the scenic route unintentionally. And unfortunately, a lot of kids who struggle in the ways that we're discussing need extra support because their brains just are not developmentally sound. There's too many stop gaps in the brain, basically. So we need to improve brain connections, right? That's really key. That's what the research continuously shows. And yet we're not really thinking about the whole. So in this picture, we say the balanced brain is a teachable brain. It's not the balanced brain is a perfect person. What we want is for all the different connections, again, to be overall balanced to allow for normal functioning. We will have our developmental challenges, we will have our life challenges, but it shouldn't be to the point where it's a pattern of struggle or a pattern of behavior that impacts your functioning in academics, with friends and relationships, with the home dynamics, with how you perform in sports or arts and dance. It should only be a mild thing that, you know, in a sense is normal amongst other peers. But again, when it's a pattern of behavior that impacts your functioning in your life, then we know that there's more of an issue. So these imbalances, there are some early indicators, from missed milestones to challenges in school, those self-regulation issues that are not developmentally appropriate. And generally speaking, these examples on the left and right there, left brain weak versus right brain weak, it's generally not just one side or another, although we try to stimulate the side that is weaker. Generally speaking, we all have strengths and challenges in each side. But again, the more balanced it is, the more we're able to function in a way we expect, right? Or society unfortunately expects. But when there are those imbalances, that's when you see some of these challenges, okay? So we have to get to the root of the issue. It's not just keep practicing, right? We need to improve brain connectivity in order to improve these cognitive tasks like focus, memory, learning, comprehension, and even reasoning, in order to improve executive functioning, which I mentioned is everything we do. Executive functioning is a big umbrella of skills, from inhibition and impulse control to your behavior and regulating your emotions, to your time management and organization and your initiation and motivation to complete a task, something as simple as putting away the dishes to something more complex like completing that project, right? Or reading those chapters in a book, and problem solving as well. So the big question is though, how do you train the brain? I'll throw it out to you. How do we train and strengthen the brain and the brain connections?
Well, I don't know if anyone else wants to answer these questions, but something that we've learned is that we need to use oral senses, and we need to develop this brain connections, these pathways where they're going to communicate through different activities, different ways to stimulate all our senses so we can learn and have more experiences, more connections that students can use later as a building blocks to get and acquire a new skill.
Absolutely. To trigger the billion plus neurons in our brain, we need to stimulate it. And the ways to stimulate it, two most powerful ways, is engaging all of your senses and also movement or exercise, okay? So at Brain Balance, we use a unique combination of exercises that stimulate both the sensory and motor systems all at the same time. And to Ms. Ponce's point, you need to have that dynamic stimulation and training, because that's what's going to get your brain cells to say, oh, I can apply it in this setting, I can learn in this setting, and this, recall and apply that knowledge in other settings and situations too. Otherwise, that's not true learning, okay? So the thing is, there's way more senses than the 5 senses we talk about, right? There's sight, there's smell, there's hearing, there's feeling, there's tasting, but there's also proprioception, how you relate and sense the world around you, all right? And there's interoception, how you feel internally when you need to use the restroom, that you can feel it and go, or if you're thirsty, all of that. So all these various senses play together along with movement, fine and gross motor skills, in order to allow our brain to develop in the most sound and balanced way. So in our program, we start with an assessment to really understand, well, where are those strengths and where are those deficiencies, so that we can attack all of it at once. We also cannot just look at the weak areas. We can't just say, okay, this kid is struggling with language, so let's just get training for speech, right? Or they're struggling with writing, so let's practice writing every day. That can help, yes, but you need a much more comprehensive approach. And again, not just focusing on the weaknesses, because that's not how the brain works. It's much more integrated. Nothing in the brain works in isolation. So we need to stimulate whole brain connectivity. So at Brain Balance, here's just a few examples, right? From the supplementary activities of literacy skills, from writing we use a lot of Mr. Senti markers, basically. So you have that smell. We even have wiggly pens for that tactile stimulation when you're writing, slam fours, these colorful letters that are magnetic, to working the body. You can see a little bit of the layout here, from balance activities, coordination activities. We have sensory stimulation with this kiddo on the right here, with the sound, a metronome right now, because different beats and different sounds trigger different parts of the brain and can help you calm or help you motivate or get you energized, I should say. That little sticker on his shirt, by the way, is a smell that we put on him, because different smells also stimulate different parts of the brain. In addition to, you can also stimulate it, which I'll talk about later, stimulate focus and calm, or energy and whatnot. The glass is the visual stimulation. We have visual processing exercises. We have mindfulness exercises, working on core, again, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, balance, coordination, vestibular system, rhythm and timing especially is so key. So that's just a few of the examples that we work on. And Ms. Ponce in our showcase showed also other ways that she works on literacy. And that's just a snippet, right? A snippet of the things that she does and builds upon to help her students accelerate their growth, and how effective that intensive intervention she's developed with her team has been in a short amount of time. We are seeing lots of kiddos in what we call a developmental dip, or the learning lag, as Ms. Ponce said, and that gap is only getting bigger with the pandemic, unfortunately, yet we have the same amount of time to reduce that gap. So her intervention, along with collaboration with us, and again, the parents, that triple threat is, yes, exactly, is so unique and so strong, and can help individuals, teachers, professionals see that change. But you really have to support the whole, the foundation. So this is a pyramid that Brain Balance uses that shows you the progression of development that drives cognitive success. Again, we tend to focus on the tip of the iceberg. So at the tip of this pyramid, the synchronization piece affects behavior, academics, social skills, focus and attention, for instance. Those are just a few of the examples. And so we expect individuals to have this top-down control, but look at everything that's supporting that behavior. You need to have bottom-up development, again, in this comprehensive way, and build up their learning skills again, and the capacity to be able to absorb and receive the learning that someone like you, all the participants here today, are trying to give our kiddos. Without the toolbox, those tools and the learning you're trying to instill in them is not likely to be as effective. Okay, or in some instances, honestly, not effective at all. Okay, but we know the stronger the brain connections, the stronger the processing skills, the stronger the cognition, the stronger the executive functioning, the stronger the individual is in every way. Okay, and to do that, we have to stimulate all those senses, and we have to move our body. And we know this works because of the research in neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and adapt as a result of experience. No matter how old you are, that brain can constantly be molded and shaped for higher functioning. I told you, we work with kids, teens, and adults. We have a 70-year-old in our program right now because she was tired of struggling. She believes she's an undiagnosed ADHD individual who has been struggling all her life. And at this point, she doesn't want to struggle anymore. And she knows she can train her brain to do better. And it's very exciting to see her growth just in the last month. And she's very motivated by it as well. So neuroplasticity, remember that word. We can always change. The idea that you can't teach an old dog new tricks is completely false. So keep stimulating that brain, engage your senses, and really get involved with the world around you in as many ways as possible, and don't just sit and waste away, right? We have to engage the brain. And I'm going to give you more tips as well. We've been talking for about a half an hour, so I wanted to see, do you need a little break, like a couple-minute break? And I also want to do a brain break with you. So let me know, a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you need a break. If you don't need a break, I want to do a quick brain break with you and move on. I see, move on. Want to make sure everybody gets a chance to share though, and you can share privately with me as well in the chat. Okay, let's do a quick brain break then. This is one of my favorites I like to do with students. So if you don't mind turning your camera on so I can see if you're doing it or not. I like to play a game called Amanda Says, just like Simon says. This is a very simple game you can play anywhere, anytime, in any way, and it works many different areas of the brain. You have to focus. You have to work on your visual processing. You have to work on auditory processing. You have to work on body coordination. You have to work on rhythm and timing, because you have to do what I say when I say it, right? And many other skills, like if I ask you to balance or to stand on one leg, right? So I love this because, again, it just trains so many different parts of the brain quickly. So Amanda Says, touch your head. All right. Amanda says, give me a thumbs up. How about thumbs down? Ah, Amanda didn't say. Okay, let's try again. Let's go back to thumbs up. Amanda says, give me a wiggle. Amanda says, wave, make the wave across your screen. Awesome. Amanda says, do piano fingers. Tap your fingers to your thumb and reverse and stop. Oh, Amanda did say. So because of the screen and the lag, and you can't see my feet anyways, I just kept it kind of upper body. But again, you can do a lot of different things to quiz them. So that's your little brain break. If you want to stand up and do a quick stretch, I usually ask people to do that too for part of the Amanda says is a different stretch and breathing or whatnot. So feel free to do a little stretch.
Miss Amanda, I wanted just to share that with Leonel, we've learned so many of your very engaging and amazing exercises, like ones that you're doing, well, not you, but the students, they do on the floor.
Yeah. And
just to help them for the core,
yeah,
which is really important, very important. The vestibular and proprioceptive systems, they're so important. Sometimes we think that the student has attention deficit or hyperactivity, and the students that are moving around constantly, and it's not just because they are not paying attention.
Yeah,
they are moving because they need to move in order to be able to focus.
Yep.
And sometimes as a teachers, we don't understand that, and we just call their attention, even, kind of reprimand that they're moving or they're just jumping when they need to do in that constant movement in order to be paying attention. So that is so important for the students to be ready to learn.
Exactly. For all the educators out there, right? Everyone is different in how they process information. Some people need to move. They fidget for a reason. There's fidget toys for a reason, but you need to make sure you teach them how to use those fidget toys so they don't become distracting toys. Some people have to chew. There's a lot of research that shows chewing helps you focus. Some people have to look around. Blinking. Research shows blinking helps you process information. So you might see some kids blinking a lot. That's them. Or looking around the room. That's them processing the information. So know that, again, neurodiversity is about how we all are a little bit different in how we learn and look, and it's okay. So the more you learn, the better you can accommodate these students, right? So yes, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so some groups and strategies. Number one thing is you need to promote healthy habits. So what does that mean? Number one, exercise, move the body, engage them. Whether you're a parent at home who needs to raise the kiddo's heart rate before you go to school so you can help them focus, to if you are doing a lesson and you just need to reset the brain a little bit, right? So move their body, do some high knees, maybe a jumping jack, although I'll tell you right now, something like a jumping jack can be very difficult for kids with neurodevelopmental challenges. It requires multiple centers of the brain. So that could be a red flag. If kids can't do a jumping jack, something more is happening in the brain. Those bilateral movements are not happening like they're supposed to. The other thing is frequent short breaks. Brain breaks are really important. I talk a lot about that in my other trainings. It's not going to happen today, but know that brain breaks don't have to be long. They could be short, they be quiet, they don't even have to be active. And the key to brain breaks is you need to take them before fatigue, lack of focus, or frustration sets in. And we tend to take it once we're tired or frustrated, right? So really pay attention. When does your student, or when do you even start to tap out? You need to understand your functioning and your ability to focus, and then take the break before that onset of, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay. Limit screen time. That is a real thing. Screen time fatigue is quite serious for some people, and for others not so much. But there are basic recommendations that you don't want to do more than 2 hours of screen time, no matter what age you are. And the recommendation, I believe, is 0 screen time for up to age 5. But we can't get away from technology. So how do you have healthy relationships with it? How do you limit screen time from balancing movement with screen time? So maybe you're doing 30 minutes of some kind of game they want to do, so make them run around for 30 minutes, right? We actually at Brain Balance are having a free healthy screen time workshop at the end of this month. So I'll share that at the end, so you can sign up too. But if you're interested in learning more about screen time and just really the research behind it and how to have, again, a healthy relationship with it and have tools that make you feel confident, that's the workshop for you at the end of June, okay? Nutrition is another big thing that gets taken for granted. What we eat matters. What we feed our brain and feed our bodies can affect mood and learning and processing, focus, etc. In our program, we do have diet as part of a healthy, low inflammation diet as part of our program as well. So please look into what you're feeding the kids. What are they eating first thing in the morning? Is it a bunch of carbs and sugar, or are they eating healthy proteins that will last them through the day to help them focus? Okay. Sleep is another one that I feel is, I think any age also not taken seriously. I know for a fact, sleep has affected my functioning in life. I did not sleep as much as I should have as a kid. And people with neurodevelopmental challenges, their brain is working a lot harder than the average person, right? So they actually need more sleep. So think about setting go to bed alarms. Think about what your wind down routine looks like, and these distractions. It just what is the setting as much as possible? How do you set yourself up to get enough adequate sleep? Okay. And then teaching independence and problem solving skills, right? Growth mindset is huge. We teach that a lot here at Brain Balance. How do you avoid words like this is too hard, or I can't do it, to if I practice, I know I'll do better. You know, practice makes progress, right? We teach that a lot. Practice makes progress. We make the kids repeat quite a bit, okay? Does not make you perfect. And it's all about progress too, right? It's not perfection. So progress, not perfection. We say that a lot as well. And there's so many ways to improve EF skills or executive function skills, okay? There's so many ways to improve those skills, from playing games and teaching how to study and use planners, etc. Again, these are just life skills, but these are skills that need to be taught. We're not born with it, okay? Schedule and routine. How does your lesson look? How does your home life look? How do you run your day? The better, the more aligned your schedule and routine is to your goals in the day, right? The better. If every day is wild, wild west and who knows, your brain can't feel safe and function like it's supposed to either. So we need some kind of consistency. And I'm not saying that you can't be flexible, right? You don't want to teach rigid thinking. There's a lot of kiddos out there when they're really rigid and they're inflexible and they can't transition from one thing to the next. That's also another sign that there's some imbalances in the brain. So again, teaching flexibility is key, but a consistent schedule overall is really important. Of course, we want to talk about engaging all your senses too, right? That's a healthy habit as well, no matter where you're at, whether you're taking a walk in the neighborhood or on a hike, to studying, to cooking. We really want to intentionally look, hear, smell, feel, and more with whatever you're doing. And that also lends to practicing mindfulness. Being present in the moment, tapping into all your senses is key. It does not mean that you're sitting and you're trying to get rid of all your thoughts. I'm not talking about meditation or yoga. I'm talking about mindfulness. And the research shows just 1 minute of mindfulness a day. 1 minute, that's 60 seconds, right? It can change your brain for the better. And so I know many school districts employ this practice, again, district-wide or school-wide or classroom, and we definitely do this quite regularly at our center as well. So practicing just 1 minute a day, start with yourself. Before you try to get these kids or your students to do these healthy habits, do it for yourself. Model by example and show them what a healthy habit looks like, I guess, okay? Here's some other tips. I mentioned how smells can help boost learning too. Energy and motivation tends to be more of the fruity smells, apples, oranges, all right? And then if you want more calm, more focus, peppermint, eucalyptus, lemon, these kind of harsher, stronger smells tend to help with that too, even with things like behavior. I know a lot of parents who use lemon to calm their kids down during a meltdown, okay? When it comes to colors, what you're seeing, I see you getting coffee. When it comes to colors, for memory and attention to detail are the brighter reds, yellows, and oranges. You can use highlighters, you can write with that color, right? But if you want more comprehension and focus, mixing it with some of the darker hues like blues, purples, and darker greens, that can help with, again, comprehension and focus. When we look at sounds and music, those different frequencies, tones, etc., can also trigger different parts of the brain. But in terms of learning, energy and motivation tend to be more of the high frequency sounds. So we use a lot of classical music in our program to trigger different parts of the brain and instill different goals. But you can look into a lot of these tools online. Just, search on YouTube, for instance. Focus and calm tend to be more of the lower frequency sounds. So a lot of people love the ocean waves or rainstorms. So look into that if you're trying to just bring the energy down, okay? Okay, so summary, basically, the brain can change. That's what neuroplasticity shows us. We need to train it though through a multi-sensory and engaging sensory motor engagement in order to get those connections to happen and to change and to mold to what we want. And as we meet each learner where they're at developmentally, rather than having chronological age or grade level expectations, we're better able to meet their needs and accelerate those gaps and holes in their development, accelerate the growth so that those gaps and holes in their development don't continue to hinder them and inhibit their potential, basically. Ms. Ponce, do you want to add anything else before we wrap it up?
I was just trying to put together everything that you said. How would we translate that information into, for instance, student learning how to read a word? And one of the things that students struggles is with phonemic awareness, being able to discriminate the sounds, find the sequence of the sounds. And sometimes we think that by teaching them directly, the students are going to learn that skill, which has to do with all these other areas that you were talking about that they need to have in place. For instance, to have the concept starting from their body. Where is the position themselves in the body, to understand in the space what is the concept of sequence, what it goes first, then last. And then we can start building, those concepts in translating them to the teaching them how to read a word, how to discriminate through all the different activities even before just to go to the letters, naming the letters. The students, they need to practice how to manipulate those sounds as a basic principle for later to read and be able to decode later.
Absolutely.
So yes, this is really important.
It's important. It's complex when we can't do it alone, right? So let's end on that. We can't do it alone. Again, brain balance, we're only one piece of the puzzle, like many others, but we're a big piece of the puzzle. And together, again, with the teachers, with the school, with the parents, with other providers, we can be stronger when we're aligned and supporting each other's efforts rather than everyone trying to do their own thing. So the more coordinated, the more teamwork, the better, to be the village for each person. We need that village to support growth and development. And, it's very disheartening when I see families come in so defeated and they feel like they're alone and they don't know what else to do, right? They just don't know what else to do. And we're here to support them and to let you know you're not alone. Even you as professionals out there too, you are not alone. Collaboration is key. I love that. So if you're interested, if you're a professional, you want to learn more, let me know, whether it's direct collaboration in programming or even training. I do a lot of these types of professional trainings, whether it's on ADHD, neurodiversity, reading challenges, etc. Right? It's just how do you support your team and yourself? The more you know, just like I tell my parents and my students, the more you know, the more you can make sound informed decisions to support your growth in your life. So thank you for joining us today. So I want to share a few ways for you to stay in touch, particularly with brain balance. If you want to call or text us or email, that's fine. We have multiple ways from our San Diego Center or even our Chula Vista Center if you're down in South Bay. But I listed the San Diego Center since that's our main space. And then there's books you can read too. I know we have a lot of learners here today. Disconnected kids is something we refer to a lot of professionals as well as parents. If they want to learn more about the idea of disconnected brains and how that affects learning and development. And then social media, that is an area that is quite strong, right, in society today. We can use it for good. We have a lot of resources that we share for free on our Facebook and Instagram, YouTube for sure. This is where this video will be posted. Most of our workshops are free and recorded, so you can see it there as well. So just subscribe to our channel. But our website, brainbalancesandiego.com, also has a ton of resources to learn more about these various challenges that you may be experiencing or curious about, from on-demand webinars as well to the different blogs and more. So stay in touch with us. We have upcoming events too. Each month we have, again, multiple events, from this month an assess-a-thon to a summer passport, just getting kids, again, use their senses and move their bodies and not have the summer slide, right? The assess-a-thon, we're preparing for a busy summer. We are available this weekend for additional assessments. To next week, ADHD and behavior is a free virtual workshop. Oftentimes ADHD goes hand in hand with maladaptive behaviors. So if that's you, or you know someone who's struggling, join us, okay? And then this is the healthy screen time workshop I mentioned earlier, tools for parents to feel confident. And this is this is being presented by Screen Time Clinic, who is one of our amazing partners in the community. And she is local to San Diego as well, but she serves the whole nation. So if you have any other questions, let me know. But before I forget to, I would love to hear if there's any aha moments, anything new that you're going to train or try, and if there's anything else you're wondering about or want more training in, feel free to type that into the chat box or share it out as well. So let me see if any others joined us today, and if you have any questions, and then I'll stop the recording now.